I do not want Fast and Furious to be the theme of Universal's new roller coaster. It's a terrible idea, plain and simple. But somehow this rumor, it continues to prevail, even though an IP like Ghostbusters is the obvious choice. So can this Fast and Furious rumor die, please? It's not a good fit. Yes, I am aware that Universal is building a Fast and Furious ride over at Hollywood, but how does that correlate to Fast and Furious coming to Orlando? Is this entire rumor just recency bias? People see that Universal is building a Fast and Furious coaster across the country, so they automatically assume that another one will be built at one of their other properties. Perhaps the ride system is going to be duplicated. Universal did put a lot of research and development into the Intamin spinning car technology, so it's only natural that they would reuse and recycle it, so none of that research goes to waste. But again, Fast and Furious, they don't need to tack on the exact same IP. The sport car spinning trains can easily be translated into Ecto-1s. Nothing with a second version of this ride has to be finite. Technology can be adjusted. None of this makes sense to me, yet somehow Fast and Furious became the dominant rumor for this new roller coaster. And it's making me question the whole Ghostbusters thing even more. Yes, I do believe Ghostbusters is the proper fit, but if everyone's saying that the new ride is gonna be Fast and Furious, then I'm inclined to believe them. The whole situation is starting to make me doubt my own judgment. So let's put this rumor to bed. I'm gonna make one more final prediction to see what is this roller coaster. Is it truly Fast and Furious, or Ghostbusters, or some third IP I haven't even thought of? Let's see what is the theme for this new, for potentially 2027 roller coaster. So for the noobs in the audience who stumbled upon this video, yes, Universal, they are building a new roller coaster. It is replacing Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, which is currently being demolished. And no, we do not know what type of roller coaster this is. Like everything else, we're just assuming here. We assume that this ride is going to be a next generation Intamin spinning coaster. Could it be a different Intamin model? Potentially. But as of now, Extreme Spinner, that's the leading prediction. In terms of theming for the attraction, Fast and Furious is also the leading prediction. But is there any validity to this? Universal, unfortunately, they don't like to leave all their cards out on the table. They never reveal what they're actually building to the public until maybe 6 months to a year prior to the ride's opening date. It's a frustrating system for sure, but at least it keeps the public on their toes. Sometimes it's fun speculating and theorizing what this attraction might or might not be. But in this case right now, I am not having fun. I really just want to know what this coaster is. It feels like Universal is taunting us by only leaving breadcrumbs of information that's guiding us in many different conflicting directions. Seriously, the only knowledge we can gather is from the oh great construction wall. And that construction wall doesn't really tell us anything. From all the teasers, we can conclude that the ride is either going to be Ghostbusters, Fast and Furious, or Back to the Future? Maybe that one's more of a stretch. But Ghostbusters and Fast and Furious, those are the main two franchises that are almost definitive. For the Ghostbusters position, the main argument for this franchise stems from the fact that there is firehouse signage plastered all over the construction wall. And what firehouse is Universal referring to? Firehouse 89, i.e. the Ghostbusters firehouse in New York. They're trying to draw attention to this building, which is supposed to be the Ghostbusters firehouse. And I'm saying supposed to be because it doesn't really look like the Ghostbusters firehouse. I mean, it kind of does if you squint at it a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, this building barely screams Ghostbusters. It's not even a 1/2 scale of the original. It's a 1/4 scale with a floor missing. If there's any kind of quote-unquote restoration to this building, it would have to be in the form of tearing down the old one and constructing a new one in its place. Because let's be honest, if Universal was building a Ghostbusters coaster, this would not be the entrance. It's too tiny, it doesn't scream Ghostbusters, and there's no way in hell that it can house an Intamin multi-launch coaster. So the only scenario where this firehouse restoration clue would make any sense is if Universal, they were planning to get rid of this building or repurpose part of this building, and they build a near 1-for-1 scale version of the actual Ghostbusters HQ on top or next to this building, which I thought that was what Universal was doing. But now, after diving a little bit deeper, that doesn't seem to be the case. As some of you may recall, in an old leak, it was confirmed that Universal was constructing 3 buildings for this attraction: a little shed towards the front of the park, a maintenance bay in an existing parking parking lot, and a station right next to the Jimmy Fallon building. The station is what I thought was going to become Ghostbusters HQ. You put the front entrance over here, the siding of the building back here, and the structure looks like it's in the correct orientation and the layout seems to align, so what's the holdup? Why couldn't this new building be the new and improved firehouse? Well, again, I originally thought that this new building was going to be built on top or next to the existing firehouse, that crappy little facade. But no, it's not. I confirmed this with Google Maps when I overlaid the blueprints. It turns out that this new building is actually right behind the Ghostbusters facade, not on top of or right next to it. So how can Universal faithfully recreate the Ghostbusters firehouse when they have this tiny little facade right in front of it? The only appropriate course of action to rectify this problem is to either A, get rid of the facade, or B, relocate the entrance to the firehouse on the other side of the building, which wouldn't work because the firehouse you're supposed to enter longitudinally. This micro-scale firehouse is the linchpin for the Ghostbusters idea. Unless Universal plans on demolishing this building, then I don't see Ghostbusters happening. And so far, as of now, it doesn't look like they're getting rid of this facade. When Universal was taking out the track to Rip Ride Rockit, they were very meticulous and careful with the demolition process in order to preserve the building. Why would they do that if they were just going to demolish it later? Maybe if Universal was planning on using the old Ghostbusters facade as a partial cover to the new Ghostbusters building, then perhaps this new ride can still be Ghostbusters, as long as they obviously tear off the exterior and redo this facade, so that way they don't have big Ghostbusters building and little Ghostbusters building right next to each other. Like, imagine if only 2/3 of this new building was actually devoted to the one-for-one Ghostbusters exterior, while the other third of this building was covered up by these redone facades. If this scenario ends up being the case, then I would believe that Ghostbusters was the replacement. Is this plausible though? Who really knows? I feel like I'm making a bunch of mental gymnastics in my head to justify Ghostbusters because I really want this ride to be this IP. After all, it's the only franchise that makes remote sense in this area of the park, since the coaster is being built in the New York section of studios. Do I have to spell it out? Ghostbusters, New York, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man? Come on, it's right there. Universal, please make this happen. But no, I guess Fast and Furious works here just as well. Because when I think of Fast and Furious, I obviously correlate it to New York, right? I'm sure one of the 10 movies takes place in New York, so it works. But even so, if this ride does end up being Fast and Furious, it would not look good. A warehouse-style ride at the back of an alley in New York would look terrible. Not just because of real-world adaptation, but also because the New York section of Universal, particularly this junction, has been struggling with aesthetics for years now, and the addition of a warehouse-style station would not perk it up. Between the cluster of Minions Land, the soundstage, and Jimmy Fallon, if you throw a warehouse into the mix, it will only make the area look worse. I know the station for Fast and Furious over in Hollywood looks fine, but trust me, if you relocate it over here in studios, it will not look appealing. Of course, this is all just worst case scenario. Who's to say this ride is even going to be Fast and Furious? Maybe everyone's got it wrong. Maybe all of this is just recency bias. Maybe there truly is no hard evidence. If we go back to the wall again, we can see that Ghostbusters is the primary teaser here, and pretty much nothing directly references Fast and Furious. The closest correlation is this poster for Gundactor Construction. What is Gundactor? No idea. But after a quick Google search, I found out that Gundactor is a nod to Charlie Gundactor, the Senior Vice President of Attraction Development for Universal. Okay, that's something, so that mystery's out of the way. But what about this phone number that's also labeled on the poster? None of these numbers meant anything to me, so naturally the only thing I could do is call the number. Hello? Yeah, hi, I was calling this number because I found it on a poster at Universal. Yeah, so that number went nowhere, and these numbers still mean absolutely nothing to me. Fortunately though, someone online did find out that the 213 could refer to Hollywood's area code. Does it directly refer to Fast and Furious though? Possibly? Yes, it can relate to the Fast and Furious roller coaster, but does it relate to just the ride's theme, the ride's type, or both? Unclear. The other two intervals with 544 and 8182 still mean absolutely nothing to me. 818 could relate to an even more specific area code for Universal Hollywood, which is a little more specific than 212. However, I don't understand why there is a 2 at the end of this number. Was it added to complete the phone number, or is there a greater meaning? Your guess is as good as mine. The digits 544, I definitely cannot figure this one out. Originally, I was thinking that these numbers could relate to stats or coordinates, but so far I have had no luck on either of these two fronts. So if anyone in the comments knows how to decipher these numbers, let me know, because I'm at a loss. Other teasers on the wall are a bit more vague than this one, like the sign saying building better roads for a better future. I've heard a lot of discourse online saying that this one confirms Back to the Future. Personally, I don't see it. Just because the sign uses the word future, that doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be back to the future.
Right.
Also, Hill Valley, it would not fit in this back corner, especially within the building details we already know about. Now, the only way I would unequivocally say that this ride was going to be Fast and Furious without the shadow of a doubt is if Universal, they close Fast and Furious Supercharge sometime in the near future. And not just because if Universal didn't, they would have 2 Fast and Furious attractions. No, that wouldn't really matter. Well, maybe a little bit. Supercharge sucks. What I'm saying is the reason why I think Universal would want to close Supercharge prior to the Fast and Furious roller coaster is so they can harvest the attraction. If Universal was really willing to build another Fast and Furious attraction, don't you think it would be in their best interest to harvest a lot of the props and set pieces from the other Fast and Furious ride? Why would you buy more supercars, tools, and mechanical parts for another Fast and Furious when you already have a ride and queue with all these components available? So here is my thought process. If this ride is actually Fast and Furious, then I wouldn't be surprised if Supercharge gets a closing date announcement sometime in the next 3 to 6 months. That way Universal, they can tear down that attraction and harvest the attraction for all the props that they need. It's a great way for Universal to save money and not blow through a lot of needed capital. Right now, I can't say what the ride's theme is going to be. It's too early. But here are some things we have to look out for. If Universal closes Supercharge in the following year before this ride's opening, then yes, the coaster will most likely be Fast and Furious. But if Universal demolishes the old firehouse, or strips away the old firehouse exterior for a new one, then the ride could likely be Ghostbusters. If one of these two contingencies occurs, then we will have our answer. And whatever that answer may be, always remember, Ghostbusters is the correct one. Universal, I'm counting on you. You better have made the right call. But if more details come out and it turns out that you chose Fast and Furious, and you're only gonna give Ghostbusters a dumpy little meet and greet, then you better give me some copium because I'm gonna snort all of that real quick.